All right, and welcome to another episode of Indie Life Adventures. We are back in America. We're not quite home yet. We left Japan, and now we're in Los Angeles. So it is 6:51 p.m. here in Los Angeles on October 31st. And then right now in Japan, it is like 10:51. Is that what I said, 10:51?
Yep, that's what you
I
said.
just looked it up. Yeah, 10:50 tomorrow, so November 1st. So we're way out of whack. Slept a little bit on the plane, but I will be able to fall asleep very quickly the moment we're done recording this.
Yeah, I think I got about 3 hours of sleep.
Yeah, my Garmin tracked 3 hours and 40 minutes of sleep for me on the plane. I had a sleep score of 30. So here we are. So yeah. We had a prolonged day. Like
We
we
had 2 days of one day.
2 days of one day.
We got here yesterday
Okay.
and today. We got here today, but it's yesterday.
It's kind of confusing, which makes me not feel so bad about how I screwed it all up on our way to Japan with booking lodging for a day we didn't need because we were arriving to Japan a day in the future. Because now that we're back home and we're a day in the past, it just gets a little confusing. But so here we are, very sleep deprived, but wanted to review our day 16 recap,
Slash 17.
which will conclude our Japan trip since we are now back in America.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of. Because tomorrow actually will get us home. So I've written out a list of stuff to talk about.
Yes, but I think we should not ignore the elephant in the room.
But wait, no, that's in here. Don't worry.
Oh, I know, but we have to wait till we get that far.
Yes, we do. There's no elephant in here. There may be an echo in here, but there's no elephant.
There's something the color of an elephant.
Anyway.
Stay tuned. Don't turn the channel.
Stay tuned. Yeah.
Find out more about the elephant.
Oh, goodness. So, you're getting me off track here, woman.
Okay, sorry.
Our day 16/17 recap. It may just be 16. I don't know. I'm not sure. But there's definitely some maths involved. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yes.
And we can start at the beginning of the day because it was a very long day.
Yeah.
And what I will say is this is not going to be a recap of our entire trip. It's just going to be the day 16/17 recap.
Yes.
We will do a recap of the trip and kind of go back and try to find some highlights and the things that we really liked and disliked and some overall opinions and observations, right?
Yes.
And at a later date. It may not be tomorrow. It might be later on the next couple days while we get our thoughts together.
Exactly. And I do also want to record a very specific episode just about how we used points and miles to pay for this trip. And I will just, I'll just leave you with this at this moment. I'm wearing this shirt. It is a Choose FI t-shirt for Choose Financial Independence. It's a podcast. I love this podcast. And it was episode 9 of this podcast that I listened to about a year and a half ago. That episode 9 is what first inspired me to follow this path of earning points and miles to pay for extravagant vacation. And so since that first episode, episode 9, Choose FI, you should really download that podcast. It's phenomenal. I did everything they talked about and absorbed a bunch of information. And this trip was the culminating event of that year and a half worth of points accumulation. So a future episode to come that outlines all the details about how exactly we did that.
Yeah. So, but let's get started. So,
Yes.
Day 1, what did we do? Or not day 1. Day 16.
Yes. So,
Halloween.
yep, we woke up at the Hyatt Regency in Tokyo Bay, and it was a beautiful day. We enjoyed their buffet breakfast and then went for a 3-mile walk because There was a Garmin challenge that if you did a 3-mile walk on Halloween, you got a point. These points don't actually do anything, but I find them motivating to get Garmin points.
And by the way, that put me over the top. I leveled up to level 5 now.
Oh, now you're a level 5 Garmin user.
Level 5 Garmin user.
If anybody is out there on Garmin, like, we should connect. It's fun to have Garmin friends out there.
Sure.
Yes. But so now you're level 5. Welcome to the level 5 club.
Level 5.
Yes.
That's right.
Several super cool things happened on that 3-mile walk. Tokyo Bay was so different than Tokyo. It was not built up and as cram-packed with tourists. It was really a peaceful walk along the waterfront, and we saw our very first sailboat there.
Right. So I will say, I think you're wrong about the tourist thing.
Okay.
But I think they just house them differently and
Okay.
they do different things.
Well,
Here's the reason why. This is the land of Disney.
Yes, Tokyo Bay is where the Disney World is.
Right? And the whole area around there looks like Florida.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, like resorts and palm trees.
Tall resorts.
But say the weird thing about it.
It's dead.
It looks like it was built up.
Vacant.
Yeah, it all looked kind of abandoned.
Now, I will say it wasn't completely vacant, but there is a lot of buildings that have nothing going on. And if you've ever been to a big city, regardless if it's in Tokyo, New York, anywhere where they have large condominiums and hotels and stuff stacked, in rows of each other, very rarely you're going to be somewhere where there's nobody there, right? And so we're walking around and we notice there's some light traffic. There's some walkers. There's some joggers.
There were schools.
Yeah,
because there were lots of kids
there
in
was some
school.
People, teams outside practicing their soccer and
Rugby.
A female rugby team, which I think may have been part of like a university or something over there. And then that was it. But then there was a few, like places that looked like they were completely vacant. And I'm not just saying a couple places. Quite a few, like quite a bit of it. And in any case, I really think a lot of that down there is not, it looks like a lot of it was man-made. Like maybe not, but it looks like the land was pushed out, flattened and bulldozed and excavated and built on with all these hotels / resorts / condominiums.
Yeah, because they even had lots of park space, but they were overgrown.
Yeah. That was the first place. It really looked like it just wasn't being maintained.
Yeah.
Right? Especially for green space.
Right. Because there was the one park where we saw all the puppies, and that one was very well maintained.
They love their green space.
But as we were walking, it was just bizarre. It was like you could tell where there was this area that used to be a fountain, but the fountain was no longer working, and the grass had overgrown everything.
The water was no longer in it. The grass was taking over.
Yeah. So maybe they had anticipated more Disney traffic and had built all these condominiums in anticipation of it, and maybe just the Disney traffic didn't make it out that far.
It's possible because it's not so far from Disney, and like you're maybe a 5-minute shuttle bus from there, maybe 10 minutes at the most, and that's also close to the one subway station that we found that was on that side of the bay over there too.
But it seemed like everybody in our hotel was there because of Disney.
Right. Mm-hmm. It feels like almost all those hotels, really their biggest attraction is Disney on that side. And we're talking, we were at the Hyatt Regency, right?
Yep.
And there were basically all that level of hotel was all over the place over there.
Oh, yeah.
And most of those had traffic and buses going around there. There was one called like 1955.
Yeah, we kept seeing that bus go around, and it ended up being a resort called 1955, and the logo made it look like it was
like a retro style.
Like a retro, It would have been interesting to see what the inside of that place looked like.
Yeah, it would have been kind of cool. It was like 1955 Tokyo Bay or something like that.
Yeah.
It was, but it looked kind of neat. And they had a crap ton of buses, so they must be getting traffic there.
Yeah, shuttling people back and forth.
Shuttling people around. And so anyway, we took our walk and we walked down the we walked around a few blocks, a long ways. And one thing we noticed was that the roads down there were a little bit more interesting. Like it was like a main thoroughfare. I dare say it wasn't a highway, but it was a main road. Yet it had like a corner where it was going, 80-degree corner. It was not only painted like a checkered red and white, but it also had a little bit of an embankment into the curve, like a racetrack curve almost. So that was the first time I saw that, and many of the roads that were there. I don't know if you've noticed it around.
I haven't noticed it, and maybe it was just because we had come from Fuji Speedway, so we've got race cars on the brain. But it did look like maybe it was part of a street course,
or who knows?
Yeah.
F1 race Disneyland.
Maybe. Maybe. But another cool part about the walk along the river was seeing all the fishermen. Not only the fishermen in the boats.
We made it to we made it around our walk, and we made it to that long, I don't know.
Waterfront?
The waterfront, yes.
Yeah.
And the waterfront, think of it as like a mile long, almost exactly. By, what do you think? It was about as wide as a football field?
I mean, that's what we had said during the previous video.
Yeah, about as wide as a football field and a mile long.
And that mile long was only up until our hotel. There was still, after the canal, it went further.
A canal, and we were actually the first time I think we went over, we were on the other side, I think. Yeah. Because we went across the bridge to get to there. And last time we walked on it, on the other side, we weren't on the bridge. We didn't go to the bridge at all. So we actually walked in two different areas from the first time to the second time. And I think they both feel like they're about a mile long.
Yes.
The second one for sure was.
Yes, because we clocked it. But one thing that seems evident is no matter where you go, old men like to fish.
That was really cool. So there was, like you mentioned, a bunch of old men out there fishing. Some young men, but mostly old men, fishing with their surf rods, casting out, and they looked like they were catching these little...
They look like little miniature marlin, like with a little snout on it. At least the one that I saw the guy reel in.
I don't know if they're pencil fish or what they are out there, but I do think that I saw them when we were eating at that one restaurant where they were cooking everything on the grill, right? I think those were like about the same size. But they're kind of like a little blue tint to them, silvery and blue. And they had kind of a long snout. I can't tell you what kind of fish it was. It may have been a pencil fish. I couldn't tell you.
But honestly, when it was on the fishing pole, it looked like bait because the pole was so long. And I thought that was the bait, but the guy reeled it in and took the fish off and put it in his little miniature cooler.
It wasn't the only one that was catching them too. Yeah. And so while we were watching those guys out there fishing, the boats were out fishing as well.
Yes.
And I couldn't tell if some were dropping like a dredge and maybe dredging for like oysters and...
They were definitely pulling nets.
Yeah.
But whenever they'd pull their nets in, it didn't look like they had much in there.
Right. Maybe, I don't know, a beach ball size or something.
And maybe it was just the distance was deceiving us. Maybe it was more, but it hardly looked more than just the netting itself being pulled out of the water.
Right. But in any case...
It was fun to watch.
It was fun. We had a good walk.
Yes.
And we got our steps in.
Yep.
So that was nice.
Because we knew we'd be sitting on the plane all day.
And that's why we got our Garmin awards, right? Little Garmin Halloween 3-mile walk awards.
Yep.
So we did that, and then it was time to get packed.
Right, because we had booked a shuttle to take us to the airport for right around noon. So we headed back to the hotel, got all packed up, got on the shuttle, and that shuttle ride was like an hour and a half to get to Narita Airport. Because when we came into Tokyo, we flew into Haneda Airport, and then when we departed, we went out of Narita Airport.
Right. And one is in Tokyo, and the other is outside of Tokyo.
Yes.
North? Is it north or north?
I thought it was east.
Northeast. It's definitely...
Okay.
Well, you can't be...
Can't be south, you'd be in the water.
Well, you couldn't be east, you'd be in the water. Had to be northeast.
Let's go with that. Yes.
It was
And the
northeast.
reason for the different airports was 100% based on where I could get the best flights for the least amount of miles. So that was the deciding factor on the airport, which the same way whenever we flew here, we flew out of Chicago, but whenever we came back, we flew into Los Angeles. Again, totally based on just where the best points value was. And then we used our Southwest Companion Pass for repositioning flights.
Right. And so the one thing that was nice was bus travel from both the Fuji Speedway Hotel and from the Hyatt Regency there in Tokyo Bay. Man, it's so easy. Those guys you just ask how do you get from here to there, and they usually have a solution already built for you.
It was so simple. And the bus truly was just as comfortable as the subway.
More comfortable because
we didn't have to move. Chairs and you could recline.
We didn't have to move. We weren't in the way.
Yeah.
I
had plenty of room for our luggage
down
below.
Went down below in the boot.
Yes.
So it's actually not bad. Now, the one thing I have noticed about the buses, like the airport limousine and the one we took down from Fuji, right, was they don't seem like they pack them on like they do in the U.S., like a city bus. We're talking more of a charter bus here, where it's like
yes, because nice. when you buy the ticket, usually there's assigned seating even.
Right.
And yes, both times when we took that long haul bus, it wasn't even half full.
Yeah, it was nice. Mm-hmm. So we didn't feel overcrowded. So we got to the airport in Narita, and we got dropped off at a terminal.
Yes.
And then we
spent all our money.
We spent all our money. You want to talk about the elephant?
Yes. So we
can't do that yet, though. We got to talk about the other money we spent.
Well, when we showed up to the airport, we still had our Suica cards, which were paying for the subway, and they still had a balance on it.
Yeah.
We still had yen cash and coins. And so we made every effort to spend all we had at the airport, which there were ample opportunities. I mean, it was like its own shopping mall.
It was, yeah.
And it was so fantastic that the Suica card that we could use on the subway and at 7-Eleven and at the Tokyo National Museum could also be used in any of the stores there in this mall inside the airport. So it was no problem at all to spend down all our money.
We were able to get rid of it really quickly.
Yes.
So what did we mostly spend our money on? Souvenirs, right?
Oh yeah, all souvenirs.
It was all a bunch of souvenirs.
It was all souvenirs. I don't think we spent, it was 100% on different souvenirs.
Yeah, for the kids and not me.
Oh, because I had spent it all before we got to you.
That's exactly right.
So you're right. We had spent it all before we finally found the sweatshirt.
That's right. So
the sweatshirt.
I've been looking for a sweatshirt, right?
The sweatshirt.
I wanted a hoodie. I love hoodies.
And I just want y'all to know that I'm so relieved that he's not sitting here in an embroidered hoodie with cherry blossoms on it.
I would have loved one of those.
I am thrilled that you have a hoodie that can be worn without being a spectacle.
She's wearing...
Which really means that I can wear it without it being a spectacle. So tell us about this hoodie that you have selected.
All right, so after long searching, right?
Long searching. I've never looked for a hoodie this hard in my whole life.
It had to be, like, first of all, I like to have quality things.
Yes.
And I wanted the hoodie to be something that it would last. And not only would it last, but it would be comfortable and it would fit right as well as look decent, and I wanted it to be something specific to Japan, right?
Exactly. And for those who have not yet made the connection, the hoodie is the elephant in the room.
It is, yes. So we looked around, and honestly, I'd given up. I was about to be like, all right, there's nothing here. It's time to go home. we're going to get on, like we were walking to get to the terminal to drop our bags off. And I was like, well, I don't know. Well, there's a couple more stores and there's a travel store and they had some nice bags and stuff like that. I was like, well, that's kind of cool. No hoodies. They did have some neat hats, but no hoodies.
No hoodies.
Well, right across from there was a North Face apparel store that was inside the airport. And what did we find?
Well, he found a North Face hoodie that is specific to Narita Airport. Written on it is the north latitude, the minutes and seconds, and the east longitude degrees, minutes and seconds of that exact location. That is the only place in the world you can get this particular North Face hoodie and show on the arm.
Oh yeah. So it has NRT for Narita Airport, which is the I don't know, identifier or whatever for it. And then the little North Face logo there, as well as the longitude and latitude.
In degrees, minutes, and seconds.
Yep.
So he got a
place.
very specific Japanese sweatshirt of the caliber of quality that you enjoy in your clothing. At the last moment, even, because there was nowhere else to go, if we wouldn't have found a hoodie there, you'd have just been getting it online.
Right. And I'm not sure if I would have been happy with that.
Yes.
I would have just felt like, well, why even go?
Yep.
So it just happened to be fate. And it wasn't terribly priced.
Yeah. It was reasonably priced. A lot cheaper than some of those embroidered jackets you were looking at.
Exactly. And we got tax-free.
Yeah. Yep. We got lots of stuff tax-free.
Tax-free.
With your passport, if you spend over a certain amount, it's all tax-free.
Right. So that took like 1,000 yen off.
Yeah, I think so.
Right at 1,000 yen. So was this made in Japan?
I think so.
I think they said it was also made in
Japan. Your tag is
Japan.
all in Japanese.
Oh, that could just be because it's the market.
But I want to say it was made in Japan.
I thought we had seen where they had made it in Japan. But in any case, if not, it's still tagged with Japan's, the airport's specific location. So always remember that place.
Yes.
As long as I have this hoodie, which could be the rest of my life.
It could be.
Now, I had to get it extra large. And it still fits me like a large. Like I should have got that. What do they call them?
Oh, gosh.
They don't call them extra large. They call it.
I can't remember, but it was something unique.
It's like XLL?
I don't know.
I don't remember. Anyway.
Double large. I don't know.
Yeah, large.
I can't remember.
I don't remember. But in any case, I found a hoodie.
Yes.
So that was the whole thing she wanted to tell you about. And then we made our way to drop our bags off.
Yep, checked our bags. They had 3 different lounges that we had access to. We went to the business class lounge because our airplane tickets were business class. It was really busy in there. And honestly, the food was just okay, but they held to the same principle in Japan. It's all just self-serve alcohol. So they had all their bottles of alcohol out there, whether it was wine, champagne, whiskey, sake, soju, whatever, and it was all just help yourself. And they had like I don't know if you'd call them vending machines, but the beer machines where it was just
just a tap.
Yep, beer on tap, but it was more like a soda machine almost, where you had them and you press the button. It wasn't like a tap where you pull the handle down.
It was kind of nice actually. So the way it actually worked is you would get a cold glass out of the cooler. You would stick it in the little the device on the tap, and then once you press the button, it would lean it up so that it wouldn't have a bunch of head on it.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
And then it would fill until you said stop, and you press stop.
They also had a rice dispensing machine.
Oh yeah, so walked over to it's 2 sides. There's 2 lines for food because this lounge was so big.
Was really big.
And so you could just walk to either side to get some space and find somewhere to sit down. Not a lot of tables per se, mostly just 2 seating area, or like a small table with chairs on each side of it, so you could sit as a couple. And there was a few bar spaces that you could sit as well. And if you had family, there was some reserved slots that were also for like handicapped and so forth. You kind of like a little, I don't know, cubby area where you could kind of sit out of the way. And but anyway, make your way to the other side. They had this machine where you get a bowl, you stick it under there, and it's like an X-ray machine where it has a little light to show you where it's going to drop the rice at. You press the button on the how many grams of rice is, like large, medium, small, or small, medium, large, yeah, and then how many kind of grams were in each, and then you press the button and it just and then drop some sticky rice in your bowl, and then you can put your curry or whatever you wanted to on it.
And that's one thing that's really surprised me with the different buffets and even in the airport lounge. The curry is so good. It's like this black or at least really dark brown curry, and it's been on all the breakfast buffets. And I've never thought about curry as being a breakfast food, but it was so good. I really do enjoy the curry.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
So that was the airport lounge. And of course, she mentioned the drinks were good. The food
was just okay.
Good. The food was good. It just didn't have as much as variety that we've seen in some places. And you could order off a menu if you wanted as well.
Yeah, and this was my downfall, really. I kept eating in the lounge. Even though the food was just mediocre, I just kept eating and kept trying things. Because we were there like 3 hours early, and what else are you going to do but eat and drink? And I almost made myself sick from eating so much food. And the problem then was once we got in our business class seats on the airplane, and then they start bringing you out this 5-course meal, I was so full. And you were much smarter about this. Like, you deliberately did not eat that much in the lounge.
Heck no, I knew they were how they feed you on the plane.
I know. I should, but I don't know I really had like channeled my inner Uncle Jason and was just going crazy in the lounge. And I should have waited till the plane, because really, when they started serving me food on the plane, I could only take just a couple bites of each thing, and that was done.
Well, in any case.
Yes.
That was the lounge. The lounge experience was good. We made it to our gate. The flight was delayed.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And we already knew it was going to be delayed based off of some emails that we had gotten earlier. But people had already started lining up because they get really eager to get in those business class seats.
Which, hell, I can see why.
And then that really inspires everybody else to want to line up as well. So you get the business class starts lining up, then everybody, with the premium seat,
because they had first class, which nobody was lined up there. I don't know if they just didn't sell any first class tickets, and then they had a big long line for business class, and then it was called it
was like a
premium economy or something.
Premium economy.
It was somewhere in between business and economy.
It's like getting an economy seat but paying an upcharge so that way you can get on before anybody else.
I think the seats are even better.
They probably have a little bit more space.
I think they are more comfortable seats.
Yeah, they probably have a little bit more space too.
So, but yeah.
You're not super crammed in. But in any case.
So now do we get to talk about the flight?
Well, as we talk about the flights, what I want to do is I want to talk about the flight itself, but also let's kind of try to remember back to our ANA flight.
Yes, because we never really talked about our flight to Japan. And both the flight to Japan and home from Japan were business class, but they were on 2 different airlines.
Yep.
Because, again, in the points and miles game, you don't really book round trip. It is much more efficient to book one-way tickets. So on our trip from Chicago to Tokyo, we flew ANA, which is All Nippon Airways.
Right.
And then on our way from Tokyo to Los Angeles, we flew Singapore Air.
Right.
And I must say, I had watched some videos about we'll start with the ANA flight on our way to Japan. I had watched some videos on what the business class seating was going to be like, and I had built up something in my mind. And when we got on the plane, it wasn't as good as the videos I had seen.
It was a little disappointing, wasn't it?
It was. It was actually quite a bit disappointing because I'd built it up in my head. I've never flown business class international, and I hear on all these groups I'm a part of about how amazing it is and how amazing ANA is. But I think the problem was we had a very, very, very old aircraft.
Yeah, it was like...
I mean, you could tell by the television. It was like a box TV.
It was touchscreen, though.
Oh, but it was such an old aircraft.
Yeah, it was
so old,
running.
in fact, I expected there to be a ashtray in the handle. That old. There wasn't one, but it was just a very old aircraft.
They hadn't retrofitted it in a long time. It basically was running a map system that was probably from the early 2000s.
Yeah, because they had like on the TV you could see your course over the ocean. Actually, we were going this way. And I remember whenever I'd first joined the National Guard and we went to Germany for annual training and we were in an airplane that had that. It hadn't changed since then, and that was like in 2001. So they were using like the same TV charting your flight over the ocean that I had seen in 2001.
And overall, it just seemed like...
Actually, that was maybe 1999 whenever we went to Germany, to be honest. I think that was 1999 was that annual training.
So let's just say it was dated, and it just seemed like it was perhaps not the newest in the fleet, right?
But after just the shock of, hey, this wasn't nearly as nice as I expected it to be wore off, the food was phenomenal. The service was out of this world.
Right.
And the comfort of that lay flat bed was amazing. It was my first time having a lay flat bed on a plane, and that was a 13-hour flight, and I think I slept for probably 8 hours of it.
Right. Well, so it came with all what you needed. Like, it came with the USB port, and it came with the chargers, an outlet. It came with the TV that was private to you.
The noise-canceling headphones.
Yeah, Sony noise-canceling headphones. It came with a nice amenities bag.
And the one thing ANA had, which Singapore Air didn't, in their bathroom, they had toothbrush and toothpaste in the little individual packets, because after you wake up, after sleeping that long, you want to brush your teeth. Yeah. That was such a nice touch, and Singapore Air was missing that. So this morning after waking up on the airplane, it was like, I felt kind of funky.
Right, right. And I think so, before we get too far away from it, let's talk about our experience on Singapore Air, and then we can kind of, as we remember some of those things that we thought were like a contrast or similar, we can reminisce about the two things.
So Singapore Airlines business class led up to my expectations of those videos I had seen.
When you step into it, it's the visuals that you are expecting are there. And I'm not talking about just the seating. I'm talking about the pretty stewardess.
Oh yes, they were all just beautiful.
They were like the
I think we call them flight attendants.
Sorry, the flight attendants. They look like they were the ones that were in the very commercials that tempt you to want to travel Singapore Airlines, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
The seats themselves were luxurious. I mean, absolutely. I mean, this plane looked brand spanking new.
Yeah.
All the cubbies and compartments and the gadgets. Like, whenever I first sat down, I was just pressing everything and looking into all the compartments and seeing how it all worked. And you could connect to, like, once you got in the air, you could connect to Wi-Fi. And I'm messaging the kids on Instagram, like telling them, you're getting this message over the Pacific Ocean. But it was just everything I had led myself to believe business class was going to be.
Right.
To the point where the seat, I couldn't figure out how to make it lie flat. You had the buttons on the side, but I could only get it to recline, and the flight attendant had to come help.
I had this problem earlier.
Oh. Okay, bear with us while he adjusts my microphone.
Because I'm thinking he might be, as you're moving around, he might be rubbing it all on your neck.
See.
So.
But these particular lie flat seats were not automated completely. Like, you had the flight attendant had to like fold it down and do some finagling. But when she did, it was truly like a bed. It was, and the only weird thing was, whenever you were lie flat, you ended up being diagonal. Like, your feet went into like a cubby hole in the side, and then you laid diagonal because the person in front of you, like, your legs couldn't go straight out or else it would be up against their seat. So it was a little strange angle, but it was fine.
Right. And that's the differences, the contrast between that and the A&A was the A&A, you just have like, while you're sitting there, you have like a little cubby for your feet to go in.
Yeah, and it's like your bed went down.
And your bed just kind of slid out and down, right?
Yeah.
Versus you having to stand up and float the back of the bed down, lay it down, and then get onto it. But that's the difference is, like you were saying, because they have to fit everybody. Everybody in business class gets the same way, so they stack you in like this, versus straight underneath each other, because
it was an efficient use of space.
It was just the difference in how they decided they would engineer the plane, right?
Yes.
But the seats and the materials and everything was more opulent and...
Yeah, it was like you had your very own down comforter.
Yeah, well, I kind of like the Al Nippon one better.
Oh, I don't remember the Al Nippon
that one was... that one I felt like it was actually down. This one felt like more of like a...
Synthetic?
Well, foam blanket or something like that,
I don't know.
Either way, it was nice. It was heavy too.
Yeah.
Had a nice heavy feel to it. But so the bed, the bed lays out and you're kind of in there sideways. But overall, it was pretty comfortable. The one thing that was kind of weird was the A&A plane allowed, like, the seatbelt just was big enough and it would just use the same seatbelt.
Oh, yes.
This one had an additional seatbelt that was kind of like if you were coming almost over your shoulder across, and then it was just, I don't know, I didn't like it.
Whenever the bed laid down, it was a totally different seatbelt that almost went over your body diagonally.
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird when you'd go to turn over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where I really didn't like it. But
now our return flight here was only 10 hours since we were going to Los Angeles, but they must have just made up time in the air, because I think it was really only like 8 hours.
It was like 8.5.
And this may sound crazy, but I wish it had been 10 hours, because
I would have got to sleep longer.
Well, yes, because we did. We only slept for like 3.5 hours.
Yep.
But we missed out on, like, they have all these espresso drinks, and I was looking forward to having coffee in the morning. And then I know with Al Nippon Airways, they had like the main meal when you first got on the plane and they were taken off. But then once they turned the lights on, they served a whole nother abbreviated meal. And I think on this flight, they had the abbreviated meal also. However, I slept through it, and by the time they turned the lights on, they were really like getting ready to land. There was no time for any other beverages or food or anything.
So let's talk about that. So comparatively, I think that the ANA service was better than the Singapore Airlines. And I say this because of this. On the ANA, I think that they just seemed like they were nicer. And we're generally pleased to have you on the flight and provide you with an experience, right? Not just a flight, right? But an experience. The Singapore Airlines, I felt like they had everything that you wanted, but they didn't have that same like effort to make sure that you were having an experience. It wasn't an experience, it was just a flight. And so as you got on, it was like, all right, get on the plane, and then you sit down and they come around and make sure that you're buckled in, and then that's it. They do ask you for, or they do walk by, and on both of them, they give you like a refreshment, a drink or champagne to welcome you to your seat and all that stuff while you're waiting for everything to get ready and take off. But they kind of rushed you.
Yes.
Like I know on the ANA plane, like they brought it to you, and they, you could have it in your hand while you take off. They didn't care. But on the Singapore Airs, they wanted to collect that back up. You didn't even get to finish your champagne. Mm-hmm. They're like, well, we'll bring you one after we get in the air, right?
And she did.
And they also come by and they do ask you if you would like something else to drink after you get in the air. And so that's like a drink order and so forth from there. But man, once they started serving, I felt like they were like rushing, like running.
And I was wondering too if maybe the business class section on Singapore Air is bigger than
I think
because
it is.
It felt like
it was like
the flight attendants were so rushing, almost like they were stumbling over each other.
Oh, yeah.
And as if it was all of their first day on the job. Like they were like running around, dropping things and just whereas on ANA, they were like professionals. Like they had it down. They called you by your name. And they couldn't speak very good English. Like you had to really be deliberate to communicate. But it was just a total different experience in the flight attendants.
Right, and I'm not saying that it was a bad experience.
It just seemed like they had a lot of things to do. They were very rushed with trying to serve everyone because I think too maybe they also had to serve the economy class.
They might have.
Maybe that's why it was so busy.
Maybe they were just not as big of a crew,
But they did seem very, very busy.
Now I will say that I do feel that where the ANA had a more appreciable experience, Singapore Airlines had a more appreciable quality of food, drink, and seating.
Yeah.
Right?
That plane was so nice. It was. I don't know. I think I may have liked the ANA food better. Maybe it was just because I was so excited to be trying Japanese food.
Right.
And also because I wasn't as full. So I can't speak to I think I like the food better on ANA. But without a doubt, the plane was better on Singapore Air because it was like a brand new plane. It was amazing.
Well, I think I would have to say preference was Singapore Air for food and drink for me.
Okay.
That's my personal taste was that. Now I had lamb chops for dinner. Mm-hmm. We had sushi for like an appetizer. Mm-hmm. Now you had something else that I didn't have.
Well, because they said you had to pick between the Western menu or the Eastern menu, and I had chosen an appetizer off the Western menu because we had been eating Japanese food for 2 weeks. I was kind of looking forward.
I don't even know if I chose.
But they said they did not have that anymore and asked if I'd be okay with the Japanese appetizer, which, oh my gosh, it was so good. I'm really glad I got that one.
Yeah, I think I got sushi, and then I got a Western dinner.
Okay.
And then, but you had, what was it again? You said you had? Because you had like appetizer? A soup or something.
It almost was like a bento box of different compartments, but one of it came with noodles and a little vial of broth.
Oh, yeah,
And so you pretty much made your own little udon soup.
Oh, nice.
Using the compartments. And then it had different squares of things. I don't know what all I was eating, but it was so good.
Now, we sat next to each other.
Yes.
And we did it on both flights. Now, the one thing I will say is that I feel like part of where I was maybe not as happy with the service was we were at the very back of the bulkhead that splits the business class from the economy, right?
Right, because when I originally booked it, I had us having 2 window seats, and we would have been one in front of the other, which would have made it impossible for us to talk during the flight, because those were the only 2 adjoining seats. But then later on, I was checking the seats again, and they had 2 side by side, but it was in the very last business class row before business class ends.
Right.
But I thought it would be better to be side by side rather than one in front of the other. And honestly, what do you think? I don't know. Do you think it would have been better to have a window seat rather than us be side by side? Because it was still very hard to talk to each other. Because there's you had to really like lean over and talk. It was hard. Like oftentimes we would just text each other back and forth because it was easier to communicate.
Right. So I think preferentially, I mean, it's nice to be close. We can toss things back and forth.
And share food. Like we did share food and let each other taste each other's drinks.
You're close enough to do that. But at the same time, we pretty much felt like we were in our own little world the whole time anyway. So if one of us sat in front of the other or behind the other, I think it would have probably been okay to do that. And we would have got a window seat experience too.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool, depending on if you get a good view of the sky, or if both of our flights were through the middle of the night until we got, well, actually, we probably would have had quite a bit of daylight.
Well, we landed in Japan at 9:30 at night, and then we landed in Los Angeles.
But we left
at 1 in the afternoon.
But we left when we left Chicago. It was getting dark, and when we got to Japan, it was still dark.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So essentially, we kind of chased the sun across the sky just on the other side of the shadow.
Yeah.
Right. And on the way back, we would have had more light because it was 3 o'clock in the morning in Japan, or 6 when we left. Right. It was getting dark when we left, but then it was like 3 o'clock in the morning in Japan time. But when we were on the East Coast, it was like what, noon or 10 o'clock, or I don't remember. 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock? I don't remember.
I don't know. But what I do know, and if you're hearing that water, it's like coming from the shower at this point. We took showers, and now the water is draining out of the, I don't know. You probably couldn't even hear that. So sorry to bring up sounds in the background. But the one thing I do know is that now that we've flown business class, I don't think I can cross an ocean in economy, knowing what business class is like, and also knowing how easy it is to accumulate points. Like, I'm looking forward to us experiencing first class because we're really accumulating more points and miles than we're able to spend. So I don't see any reason not to splurge and try first class on our next trip.
I don't know how. Well, so personally, I don't care about first class. Sure, maybe we try it once just to see, but the only benefit I think that we could get from what I've seen so far is you definitely get to be seated first. You will, on some planes, have your own, maybe even more upgraded area and more attentive staff designated to just you. But then, and maybe even a private lounge and entrance. However, while you're waiting for your flight. However,
I mean, we had more than what we needed.
Exactly. And
like, I couldn't even, like, the drinks on the plane, I wasn't even that interested. I had, like, 2 glasses of champagne, and that's all I wanted.
Right. And now, let's just say this, right? So the drinks come complimentary, right?
Yep.
Now,
everything's included.
Yeah, it's all included in your ticket price.
The drinks, the food.
Everything, right?
Everything.
And there's so much food, you probably... I know. I didn't want as much food as they served me.
It's so much food.
I felt compelled to eat most of it because, well, it was just coming my way, right?
Yeah.
However, I stand by. You shouldn't eat before you get on there.
I know. The damn lounge, it got me. Yeah, it was like...
The lounge is exciting, I understand, and that's also part of the experience, but...
Save room for the actual flight meal.
Or just decide which one you really want to eat the most of, right? But I will say, like, the quality of the drinks, man, it's good.
Yeah.
If you like scotch or you like whiskey drinks, it's some really good. We're talking at least the ones that I picked, they were over $100 a bottle, and you were able to get several drinks throughout the flight if you wanted them.
As much as you wanted.
As much as you wanted. But, we like to be able to function when we get to where we're going. Yes. So we kind of take our time. But it's nice to sip on, and it was good scotch. Very tasty.
Yeah.
And quality. Right?
But all in all, if I were flying again, I would choose the Singapore Airlines. However... maybe I should choose ANA and just hope for a newer plane. Because I imagine if we had gotten a newer plane, it would have been out of this world experience.
Right.
So I shouldn't rule ANA out. We'll do it again and just hope for a newer plane.
Hope for a newer plane.
Yeah.
So I think I'd be fine either way. Because the reality is that flying over the ocean in business class is the only way.
Oh, to be able to just lay flat and sleep, like legitimately sleep.
But even not even if the seat didn't lay back, it's still better than sitting in the back and getting squished between multiple people. And and I just look as they're walking back, I'm thinking, oh, this sucks for you, right?
Yeah.
And how awesome was it that we got the opportunity to do that and really experience business class for 2 flights, and it made it so much more comfortable.
Oh,
like
unbelievable.
I in the military, we've taken flights across, and
yeah,
they're not nearly as fun.
No.
So I will say business class is a huge bonus. I'd recommend it.
Oh, sorry.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I probably still would never pay cash for a business class ticket. Like, they're thousands of dollars for a ticket. But using the points and miles to pay for it, it felt like a free ticket. Like, I'm excited to tell you all about how to do this points and miles thing on a future episode, but just know, like, you get to travel the world for next to nothing. Like, the flights were amazing, and we didn't have to pay cash for them.
Right.
So.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
And it's really, just a way of maximizing what you get for your dollar, right? Mm-hmm. Essentially taking advantage of a system that takes advantage of a bunch of other people, right? I mean, that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
We're taking advantage of a system that typically takes advantage of other people. But if you know how to play the game,
then you get all the benefits without any of the
you get the benefits.
Downside.
Exactly. And it's the same game they're playing. They're just able to spend more money on it.
Yeah.
So
what's left on your list? I feel like we've gone long.
We have gone a while, but but I knew we would. So we did our shopping, we did our plane ride in comparison, talked about business class. Now let's talk about our hotels. So we won't go too in depth
because there are 2 specific videos already on our channel that explain in detail. But the short, simple version is I had booked a hotel with points. We went and checked into it. It was the 4-point Sheraton, and it was trash. It was just, and I don't know whether it was just felt bad because it was such a stark difference from the places we've been staying in Japan. But really, it was dirty and smelly. That's what it came down to. The room stunk, and it felt like there was just grime everywhere.
It felt dirty.
Even though the bed was white, there were no stains on the comforter or the sheets. But the door was gross. It just
walls
looked
were gross,
dirty, and it smelled really bad.
It was in kind of a little bit of disrepair.
Yes, and so we went back and forth of whether to just suck it up and we just want to sleep and then get on our plane in the morning. But we went for a walk to go find something to eat, and while we were out there walking, I just was dreading going back to this room. Like, I really was. It was like I just wanted to walk until we were dead tired to where we just walk in and crash. But while we went and ate at Jersey Mike's, and while we were in there, I just quickly looked on the phone about, hey, how many points would it take to book something else? And it really didn't take many more points. So we had booked this 4 points Sheraton for 8,000 points, and for 12,000 points, I could book, where are we at? The Hyatt Regency, which we were just at the Hyatt Regency in Tokyo Bay, and that was a great product. And so now we're at the Hyatt Regency at LAX. And so we booked it, and then went back to the other hotel, let them know, hey, we're not going to stay here. We're going to turn in our keys. Can we get a refund? And I called. They said we have to go through our third-party booking, which was Chase Travel. Called Chase Travel. They're working on getting the refund. So we haven't been refunded those points yet, but I feel confident we're going to get them. But even if we don't, I don't care. This is so much better. So much better.
I'll get it back out of them with my Google review.
But yeah, this by far is much better experience. And I'm glad we didn't just suck it up, because it was really not that hard to book a new room, walk a half mile down the road with our bags, and be comfortable and
when she
clean.
says it wasn't hard to walk that half a mile.
Well, he did carry the heaviest bags.
I felt like I was humping a ruck, like a full ruck, an infantry ruck, not just those baby rucks that you get when you're a pogue.
Yeah. But we're here now. You're stronger for it, for having had to carry the heavy bags.
Maybe brought back flashbacks.
But yeah.
The good old days.
And now we're close enough to the airport that instead of having to worry with an airport shuttle, we can just walk. It's like 5 minutes down it's just right there.
Right.
You can see the Southwest airplane like from this hotel entrance. So yeah, we'll get up in the morning and go catch our plane and make our slow trek across the country with a layover in Kansas City. We're going to be so close to the kids and not get to see them because our kids are all in Missouri.
Are they working?
It's a Friday, so probably. We'll have to see what time. And I think our layover's real quick. We just switch planes real quick.
Yeah, it does suck.
Yeah.
But, one more thing, right? We've been talking about, it's Halloween twice, right?
Yes.
So the question is, we were looking at our watches just to see, and you looked at your watch and it just had told you that you had met like 1,000, like you just met your step goal.
Yeah, it said I just met my step goal of 10,000
right.
steps.
And so now it hadn't compiled them at that point. I don't know if this is
because I had already met my step goal today in Japan before we even got on the plane to fly here. So then it's like, hey, is this 2 separate days or is it one day?
Right, but the way it was showing, it wasn't originally showing her steps. It was just showing the 1,000 or your 10,000 steps, right?
Yep.
But then I looked at my watch, and my watch gave me 23,000, which I have not walked 23,000 steps a day, unless you count it as 2 days together.
Yes, the Halloween in Japan.
So my watch was in agreement with her argument, and her watch
day 16.
Her watch was in agreement with my argument, and now somehow it's all compiled. I think.
So now when I logged back into my Connect app, it totaled all the steps. So I've got like 25,000 steps for today. So I think that means today is day 16.
I think it's day 17.
So has it been 1 day or 2? It's still October 31st.
Definitely been 2.
We've just had a very long October 31st.
The longest.
Yeah.
The longest day ever. The longest a day could be.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. So, but with that being said, anything else we need to cover?
I think that's it.
So tomorrow, what we need to do now is we need to get our bags packed because we're getting up early in the morning.
We are. We're going to get up out of here at 4 a.m. Our plane leaves at 6:05. And I think we get into D.C. at 3 in the afternoon. So, but yeah, going to have our one last long day of travel. And then I have a weekend to recover before going back to work on Monday.
Yeah, and I think part of it might end up being spent on the
boat.
On the boat, trying to do some winterization projects.
Yeah. So we owe you 2 videos to wrap up our Japan trip. One is just our overview with our highlights and disappointments and observations and lessons learned. And then the last one will be about the points and miles process.
There you go.
And then on to our next big adventure. We haven't chose where we want to go next. So
that's true.
Yeah. If you have any input or suggestions, throw them in the comments of where you think we should go next because we've got points and are ready to travel.
Sounds good.
All right. I think that's a wrap.
Well, let's wrap it up then.
All right. Y'all have a great night. Thanks for tuning in.
Goodbye.